Hi, and welcome to Ouimet Presents, and another episode of My Friend Ted. My friend Ted has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Ted is 56. This podcast is about Ted and his family, his wife Robin, and his grown children Hannah, Jeremy, and Stephen. Ted and I meet every Sunday morning at his house in New Westminster. Every Sunday, I start up my audio recorder and ask the same question. So Ted, how was your week? But this week, my first question's been preempted by Ted's post on Facebook from earlier in the week. The post reads, "My youngest son Stephen just saved my life."
Well, I was just taking my baclofen, which I take every 4 hours or so to try to loosen up my muscles. And I guess I hadn't taken enough water. So when I went to swallow them, I aspirated one or both of them into my lungs. And it actually, even though it's a very small pill, I could not breathe at all. And so Steve was right there, and Steve started working at YMCA Youth Camp last year, and one of the things they have to have in order to work there is a first aid certificate. So he took the first aid class and learned how to do the Heimlich maneuver. And so here I was in the chair, not breathing.
And I could hear him really choking, so I reached around and pulled him up onto the armrest of the chair, and just got my thumb in and started wailing on his stomach.
He did it about 3 times. I was still not breathing. And luckily on that 4th or 5th time, he finally dislodged the pill.
It was probably a good one or 2 minutes that he was choking. So yeah, it was quite scary. I was, at first, while it was happening, I wasn't really thinking about it. I think the training kicked in, but afterwards it really struck me. It was quite scary.
So what an incredible sequence of events, that he would know how to do it. He would have the foresight to remain calm and actually do it, and be able to lift me and have the strength to lift me out of the chair and dislodge it. So, it could have been May 20th, could have been my end date.
I thought maybe we'd talk about, just some of your growing up, and then maybe we'll see how far we get. Maybe we can talk a little bit about when you met Robin and stuff too. So tell me about, where did you grow up?
Well, till about 3 years old, I was in Montreal. And then my father, who had already visited Vancouver once and just loved it, packed us up, my mom, him, and me, and we drove across Canada in a VW Beetle. And I was in that little area behind the back seat.
Yeah.
I spent most of my time back there. And then we got to Vancouver, of course. They bought a house in Coquitlam. And we were there till I was 8 years old. And then my mom left my father. So we moved to England, and we were in England for 3 years. And my dad figured out where we were eventually, and I think probably I would have done okay in England, but a family friend taught at a school nearby called Cannon Lane, and it was one of these old style schools. By the 70s, they were already kind of reforming things in the school in England, so there were some more progressive schools. We had the boys and girls were separated on these big tarmac. It was just tarmac playground, and then the bell would blow or bell would ring, and then we'd all line up in our classes, And then Mr. Williams, this awful man from Wales, would say, "You boy, lead on." And that boy would start marching and the class would follow, and then he'd point at someone else, "You boy, lead on." And we'd march into the school.
This is in the 70s.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But I got hit so many times, and I mean, some of it was deserved, I guess. But when I first got there, we got there near the end of the year, end of the school year, and we were out. I was out just playing on the playground, and there was a kid, a little boy there. We were kind of playing a bit, and then as we marched into the school, he was one of the prefects. So they had prefects who would line up to make or would stand in different places to make sure you weren't misbehaving. And as I walked by, I just waved to him because, be hanging out, and he sent me up to the office, and I got hit I didn't even know why, and needless to say, with all those experiences, when my dad came to visit, and he came one year to visit and took us down to Brighton or something like that, and it was a disaster, and he got all mad at us and then took us home early. And then he came back the next year, and
How many kids were there, Ted?
oh, it's myself and my sister Vicky. She's 5 years younger than me, so I was about 11 at the time. So he came back the next year, and he got permission to take us to Europe. We went to the Channel Islands, then to France. And in France, he asked us if we want to go back to Canada. And I had dreamed about going to Canada. I had dreams when I flew back, like a bird. So we said yes right away. So we did get back to Canada at the end in the summer. He dropped us off in Montreal, and I stayed with my relatives in Montreal. And then we came back home. And when we got back home, he had rented the upstairs of our house to a bank manager and his family, the Dawsons. So on Monday, December 17th, 1973, bank robbers broke into our house, came into the basement where my father and I slept, woke us up, took us upstairs, and then woke up the Dawson parents. And this was like 5:30 in the morning, and their plan was to go in my father's Volkswagen camper down to the Ouimet Mall, open up the bank, and take the money. So Mr. Dawson said, "Well, you can't do that because the mall doesn't even open till 8. And I only know half the combination of the safe. The chief accountant knows the other half." So the chief accountant every morning would sit with the tellers in this little cafe. They would, just do what people do before starting work. So the chief accountant would go over, check to make sure everything was okay, and then come back. And they would all go over to the bank. So what happened was she went to the bank. She saw these two men with a sawed-off shotgun and a .357 Magnum and screamed and started to run. And then Mr. Dawson ran after her and said, "They've got our kids." And so...
As well as you.
Yeah.
Not only the Dawson kids, but you guys.
Exactly. So she calmed herself down. She went over and told the tellers everything was okay. But they had heard the scream and they saw the look on her face. So they phoned the police. And that was the CIBC in the Ouimet Mall. At that time, there was a Jordan's carpets beside the bank. So the police hid out in Jordan's carpets. When the bank robbers ran outside, the police tackled one of them, the one with .357, and then the other one managed to fire off the sawed-off shotgun. And Mrs. Dawson got a few pellets in her neck.
Wow.
And one of the policemen was hurt too. So they caught the men, they came back out to the house. We were all in the master bedroom. We had been tied up, or tied up with tape. But I had broken loose, not really meaning to, but I just wanted, our hands were behind our back. So I brought my hands up in front of my feet and then got it in front. And when I did that, I broke the tape. And then they told us there was another man there, and that if we tried to leave, he would kill us. If we tried to make any noise, he would kill us. And if the bank robbery didn't go well, then he would come in and kill us. And I suppose that would have been traumatizing, but I don't think a 11-year-old, especially an immature 11-year-old, really understands the gravity of the situation.
But somehow I'm not surprised that you're the one who got his tape undone.
Yeah.
It's like sounds typical Ted. I'll just get this off somehow.
Yeah, and again, why I wouldn't have undone the tape on all the other kids is beyond me. But
well, you were 11.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I know that you say it probably didn't traumatize you, but that's pretty crazy to have happen to you when you're a little guy.
Yeah, I was pretty excited, really, being on the newspaper and on the television. Even though this is typical of my father, he wouldn't let us watch the 6 o'clock news to see me being interviewed because we were eating dinner, and then we couldn't watch the 11 o'clock news because it was too late. So I've never seen myself, even though kids all over were saying, "Oh, I saw you on the news." And that actually ties into Robin, because what happened was, at an earlier time, Robin's dad had come to do a house call for my father, because my father was quite sick. And Jan diagnosed that he had an abscessed tooth, and that abscessed tooth was causing blood poisoning. And so he rushed him to the hospital, and my dad always thought they saved his life. So my dad would go over to his house and help him do things, maybe painting a fence, putting up window shades. He worked for the phone company. He was a delivery driver, but he was a handyman like me, so he would help with all these things, which, funnily enough, I did many years later. But so he would bring us over, and we were so shy, and we had these, strong English accents. So Robin really wanted to hear us speak, because he had heard, Vicky say something. "Oh, look, Teddy, they've got a slide," or something like that. And so they were dying to hear us. We stood up on the sun deck and watched them, because they were running around playing on their toys, merry-go-rounds, stuff like that. We were too shy to do anything. So, that was that. Then we were at Centennial, and we were in the drama club. And the way Robin describes it, I was holding court, talking about the bank robbery, and which was true. I wasn't holding court, but I was talking about the bank robbery. And she said, "Hey, you're Teddy Stair." And I said, "Oh, you're Robin So." And so we were friends all through high school in the drama club. And so we'd have, lots of fun. And then after high school, we kind of went our separate ways. We would still keep in touch. I'd see Robin once in a while.
But you weren't dating in high school or anything?
Not at all.
During the play and stuff at Centennial, you guys were just pals, right?
Correct.
In fact, it would be years before Robin and Ted got together as a couple. While Robin was at university in Montreal, Ted was more interested in cars, motorcycles, and adventures on the road to employment. A road that would eventually lead to his dream job, but like everything Ted does, the road was intense and, shall we say, a bit circuitous.
So we went our separate ways. I kind of did not much for quite a while. I had a job in a plastics factory. I was in an electronics place, soldering circuit boards, and then I was unemployed for quite a while. Got a job up in a mine in the Queen Charlottes, now called the Haida Gwaii, which was very remote. It's on the southern island called South Moresby. I was just a laborer. First, we started just digging muck. Frank Waterhouse used to say, the boss used to say, "Where there's muck, there's money." But unfortunately, I kind of just squandered the opportunity. Like Mark Twain said, I never recognized an opportunity till it failed to be one. My friend Randy was going to school for diesel engine mechanics. He said, it's a great program and you would do well. And I said, I couldn't do well. I mean, I was at that stage, when you're a young adult, you can't picture yourself really fully in the grown-up world. You think you're going to be exposed. Someone says, hey, you're not an adult. But it was enough to convince me to apply. I got into the class. I loved it. It just ate it up. Problem was, when we graduated, the economy was terrible here. It was 15% unemployment, and Toronto was 7.9. I traded my car, which was a 1962 Mercury Monterey. I traded it for a sleeping bag, and I went to Toronto. At that time, they were so desperate for workers in general, and especially anyone with any mechanical skills, that when they say 7 a.m., that meant you come in, they'd interview you, and then you put your coveralls and you work that day. And so I worked in the machine shop, Harper Detroit Diesel, for quite a while. Be milling rocker arms one day, grinding valves, dipping blocks in caustic soda. So I quit that job. I just burned through jobs. It was so dumb, So I think I had like 7 jobs in 14 months or something dumb like that. Eventually I got a job at Pacific Honda in North Van, went to Simon Fraser University, and I went to school at night working to get a degree in business. Where there's muck, there's money. Iron ore paid the bills, copper made the profit. So I started at ADP, April '92, and it was just the greatest move that I ever could have made. That's where I think I learned that I'm a good knowledge worker. I'm the type of person who can remember lots of individual bits and pieces and put them together. It took me a long time to mature, well into my 40s. It's all really, whether you're building, renovating, programming, it's all solving problems. And I would go back to my diesel school in the early 80s, when they hammered into us that you can't troubleshoot a system until you understand it. And so there's no good trying to figure out why this engine isn't running right if you don't know about the fuel system, the air system, etc. So that is something that's it keeps recurring through my life. And I realized that I'm a lifelong learner. So even when I got the disease, I started researching it and learning from the ALS forums that I had upper motor neuron dominant I had upper motor neuron dominant ALS. That launched me into a research on what the disease is, how it works. I mean, I'm still trying to put things together because, it's not something you can dip your foot into. And sometimes I feel like maybe I needed this disease to learn what I was not able to learn myself. What I was not able to learn myself. And I sometimes, feel guilty because, I'm more of a husband to Robin now than I was, but it's because of this disease. It wasn't something that just grew organically. So, but then I just think, you know what? It is what it is, and I am where I am now. And I don't handle it well every day, especially when there's a new challenge. There's a new thing I can't do or a new feeling that I haven't had before. And that usually sends me for a bit of a tailspin. I think I still experience moments of joy when, I'm talking to the kids about something, or we're laughing about a funny Facebook meme or a Simpsons episode. It's harder to be sustained, though. and think positively about what's going to happen. So who knows, I have been lucky all my life. So it makes me wonder if, my luck is I just front loaded all my luck.
Next time on My Friend Ted.
At first, you draw a line in the sand and you say, there's no one going to do that. And then you get to that stage and you say, well, I guess it's not quite that bad. One of the things I had a line in the sand was having to use a hoist to move me around. But I do want to be around in August when my family comes. So does that mean I have to have a sling? It was something I just definitely did not want. I mean, it's enough lack of autonomy with what I am now, but that would be, that'd be, I guess, I don't know if it's completely relying on someone to, I don't know, not even get up.
That's coming up on the next episode. Thanks to Robin, Hannah, Jeremy, and Stephen, and of course, my friend Ted. For links to things like the newspaper article about the robbery Ted described, to our show notes, and also an opportunity for you to leave comments, please visit the website at podcasthouse.ca. I'm Robert Ouimet.